My next guest is Christine Electra Williamson, best name ever. Christine was crowned Miss Tennessee in 2018 and took home the Quality of Life Award, Preliminary Swimsuit Award, as well as a Preliminary Talent Award. During her year of service, she worked as a governor's official spokesperson for character education, traveling over 90,000 miles and speaking to more than 73,000 students across the state. For her service efforts and commitment to the state of Tennessee, she was crowned the first ever title holder in the Miss Volunteer America system as the first Miss Tennessee volunteer. Well, Christine, that's a lot. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I am doing great. So excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you on. Just for the people watching, I got distracted. I think you can see what I might have been distracted by when I jumped on with Christine. That's why we're also running a little bit late. Christine, would you like to explain what's happening behind you?
Absolutely. We're in my office. I love my apartment. It's my little she shed, if you will. But this is my shoe wall. Some people have hobbies. I have shoes. But this is my office, and I love telling clients about it on calls and love getting to be like, you know what, one day they'll all be designer, but for now, Steve Madden and many other designers are our friend. And there's a few little like high-end designers mixed in, but I do like hunting for the most unique things and making the outfits work like we were talking about. It's a lot of fun.
I have to ask, and I know this is going to be like trying to decide which one is your favorite child,
Oh,
but is there a favorite pair or is there a top three, like
this
most
one's in the top
worn?
three. It's a Jeffrey Campbell limited collection. She's got these gigantic sparkly situation. I mean, how can I not love her?
Oh
Like
my God.
I mean,
She,
she's gorgeous. But there's definitely a few others, but like that's easily the first pick in the top three. I
I,
mean, you asked
w-
it with the perfect timing.
if you wear them, I'd be so worried that if I went out, someone would mug me just to take my shoes. That's because it's so bling. I love it. I don't know. I don't know anything about shoes, but this is by far the most impressive shoe collection I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Um, so, Christine, why don't we start with an easy question, or maybe it's not so easy for yourself, how you got into the world of pageantry to begin with?
Good question, not an easy question. But that said, I started when I was, gosh, 17 years old, and I didn't know a thing about pageantry. My dad and I had watched The Youngest Miss America Crowned in 2011. I remember we were watching a rewatch or a replay, and because I was a senior in high school, so I was about to be a senior in high school, so 2013. It's been a minute. Like all the youngins out there don't come for me. I feel old saying that out loud. But I remember I didn't know anything about pageantry. I just had remembered my dad telling me about what it did for women in his life before he met my mom and how even beyond that, like he had seen so many women just have incredible experiences because of this. So that said, I I learned so much and did not know. And then my first pageant was Miss Memphis. And now it's Miss Memphis Volunteer within the Miss Tennessee Volunteer Organization. And I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. Now I live in Chattanooga. Went to the University of Mississippi, and we can dive into all those fun things later. But I, looking back, it's so funny because I remember I was on my senior trip to Italy. I went to a classical Christian education school where everything is all honors, and that's also a long story for another day. However, we're coming home, and I remember landing in Atlanta and thinking and getting an email from the director whose daughter was my first ever princess when I was Miss Memphis going to Miss Tennessee in 2014. And she was this last year's Miss Mississippi volunteer team. So it's funny watching it all come together. But Precious Rebecca and her mom, I remember her emailing me going like, so there's Swimsuit. And I'm like, I come from a very Southern Baptist family. We were one pieces at all times, and you can wear a one piece competing in our system, but it was just breaking into the system and not knowing a completely different world that I'd never known. And years down the road, I'm 29 now, so it's been well, I'll be 29 this month, I should say. So it's going on 12 years, and just thinking through who I was at 17 versus who I am now, what what experiences I wouldn't give to share with 17-year-old Christine, and how happy I am that I was able to have this experience leading up to this point in time.
I did some due diligence, if that's the right word. I looked
Of
into your
course.
background. There's a fair bit to dig in there, and I think fair to say, I mean, your path. I mean, it's been a minute, as you said. I
It's
mean,
been a
10 years
journey.
in pageantry is an entire lifetime, maybe several lifetimes.
Really
But it
does.
hasn't been a straight line. It hasn't been a straight arrow, just happy stuff and good vibes and all that stuff. Did you want to, and as much as you're comfortable, that's fine, but did you want to go through some of the trials and tribulations as well? Because I think it's very important that young people joining pageantry, especially, they realize that it's not just what you see on stage. You watch these, at least in America, you watch them on TV back then, and now probably on streaming services and YouTube, and you'll see these immaculately dressed, glamorous, beautiful women, huge smiles, and you think, oh, one day I want to be her. And sure, that's fine, but sometimes you don't see what's going on behind the scenes. So we've got a brief overview of your pageantry journey. Did you want to go through maybe some of the ups and downs? Because I know it's a
Yeah,
very involved story.
absolutely. I mean, stop me as you feel fit because there's a lot to it. That said,
Mm,
I didn't know what I was getting into, and that's like my mom is originally from Phoenix, Arizona. My dad grew up in the South, so I had an interesting experience coming into this. Like, I remember grew up in Memphis, then I went to college at the University of Mississippi, and I'm sure, without a shadow of a doubt, I was the most well-behaved student there. I was so scared to go to any parties ever because I was 17 starting college, so I was a baby. And then getting into but my parents loved it because they're like, this scholarship organization is what's going to keep her going, and it's going to keep her behaved because we are all about making sure that the women that are involved in this are role models. So at that point, my parents were like, "Of course, we'll help fund this." Like, it makes her like stay in her dorm at all times. But that's and so I am sure they will watch this and be like, "Absolutely." But that said, in addition to that, there's so much more. And even just you mentioned getting started into pageants. My first year, I had just turned 17. Or was turning 17 when I got the email, and I was a senior in high school, so it bumped me up to a miss at that time with the
mm,
way the classification went. And I could tell you, as someone, my sister's the athlete, and I can talk about her for days. She is the first doctor in our family, and I am so proud of her. Um, cannot say enough good things about her. She's an occupational therapy doctor. And Christine, feel free to get it confused. Even my parents do. But just she is very much the athlete. I am not. If you see me running on a treadmill, I'm angry. I will not like if it's something where there's a lot of cardio involved, it's because I said yes, or I have a lot of feelings. So that said, like finding my way into this was so different from anything I'd ever experienced, but it was also the best experience I could have asked for. So going in thinking that I'd be in fitness and I'd be a teen and I'd be competing with 13 to 17, going on 29, and like I am a decade and more away from who I was. Thinking about who Christine was at 17 versus who I am now, like there are no words to explain just how much I've learned through the years. I've made it through high school, I've made it through college, I've made it through graduate school, I've made it through multiple post graduate degrees. Like what I didn't know is what I didn't know, for
mm.
lack of a better term. And just thinking through all that, like I am so grateful that this program gave me that experience. But getting into it it always has been and always will be something that I am grateful for. Like one of the first woman I met, Jocelyn Jordan, just got married to her now husband, and she was one of our first Tennessee teen princesses. And it's fun to see how the women that you know through this program progress, but also just seeing yourself progress. I mean, selfishly, looking back on the growth and the change in who I am because of this organization and because it's what it's provided me is invaluable.
How did the program contribute to your growth over the years? And I ask this because I've interviewed several hundred pageant contestants now,
Just a few.
but just a few. But just so you know, like coming from Australia, which is where I'm based,
Mhm.
we don't have scholarship pageants. The pageants, when you win a crown or a tiara, and you win complimentary makeup and all this stuff, and then maybe you get a chance to go overseas. That's all well and good, and that's all I knew. And then when I started interviewing America, and same in the UK, by the way. So I kind of went from Australia to the UK. Aren't really any scholarship pageants there. And then going to the US, I came across this idea of a scholarship pageant, and it really intrigued me because the idea of having cash that could be used towards education, which is hugely important, that always intrigued me. I've only been sort of more recently getting into it. But how did the system contribute to your personal growth over the years? I assume it's going to be the women that you met, the women that you worked with, but also some of the work you did on the sides as well. So how did that all come into play?
Yeah. So I'm originally a Memphis, Tennessee native, and now I'm in Chattanooga, about 5, 6 hours away. And I just love the state of Tennessee, and I will always be close to it, no matter what. That said, so one thing I don't think people realize is that Tennessee is incredible because we have the Tennessee State Promise. So every student, to my knowledge, and this may have changed over the years, but up until 2020, was provided a 2-year scholarship. So that where if you wanted to go to
Oh, wow.
specific outlined state schools or a trade school, like it's outlined and it's provided for you within, like, of course, there's application
Sure.
circumstances and reasons, but what an incredible program. So
Mm,
and obviously that is a huge factor when it comes to thinking about when I was the governor of Tennessee's character education program spokesperson. So that was a huge factor in thinking through, like, how am I going to get these kids to stay involved? And during my year as Miss Tennessee, I was not able to be in school, but the year before I graduated from the University of Mississippi, which can talk more about, like, it was, to give a very light background, it was very much a dream for my family in so many ways because my dad's family, we have a lot of family in North Mississippi. Just to give some geography, like, the West Tennessee is parallel to North Mississippi. Where I'm at in Tennessee now is parallel to North Georgia. So it is very much of a change for this Tennessee girl. But it's been a lot of fun to see family on both sides and through all states. But that said, it was such an incredible experience to be able to graduate from the University of Mississippi with my degree in broadcast journalism, emphasis in public relations, and my minor in in political science. And to get to see my dad there because he really wanted to go to Ole Miss, but he wasn't able to afford it at the time. And I think it's somewhere on my website where I have the full video, but it was just such an amazing experience to see my grandmother and my cousins and my mom and my sister and my dad, and just to share that moment with my dad in the audience of seeing him go, like, just seeing a family dream fulfilled. So, like, being able to graduate debt free from Ole Miss was a
mm.
huge opportunity. And my dad paid his way through the University of Memphis, and he was the first college graduate from his family, which means a lot to so many of us. And what a priority education is. And so that's always been something in our family. And him helping me find the opportunities and then being able to attain the scholarships to go and graduate debt free is insurmountable. So it was a very special moment. And then I was able to come here to Chattanooga and attend the University of Chattanooga for graduate school and attain my master's of business as well as my master's of data analytics with a certification in data and business analytics. And then what was really cool was, and not really cool, it was really odd. It was really just something that I never thought I would see, was being able to get my certification in contract law from Harvard, because my parents met in Boston kind of as a happenstance situation, um, and then was able to get that through my company. And, like, I've always enjoyed law. I didn't feel like law school was meant for me, being able to not only serve millennials and Gen Zs and Gen X and people that I work with every day, being able to have that knowledge for myself was huge. And it's because of Miss Volunteer America that I was able to attain all of that completely debt free, and being able to have multiple postgraduate certifications to be in the position I am is just something that it's hard to explain because it's just something that so many people in my family haven't had the opportunity for. And just having the privilege and the incredible circumstance to be here is
Mm.
something that's hard to put into words.
I think you're probably the first person I've interviewed where it's at least from what I'm seeing, it's you're quite emotional about the educational experiences. That I'm not going to say that you've been lucky. I mean, you're blessed, but I mean, there's a lot of hard work involved as well, a lot of sacrifice. But I speak a lot about pageants, and the girls are very emotional when they win their title, understandably. but you seem very grateful for the educational experiences that you've gone through. And I mean, you mentioned places like Harvard. Everybody knows what Harvard is, even coming from Australia. Can I just
that
ask, I
means
mean,
a lot.
you mentioned your dad as well. I'm just curious, why does education mean so much to you? Because everyone will say, yes, education is important, but it's just a byphrase, a catchphrase. But to you, I can see that it seems to mean a lot. So why in particular for you? You mentioned your sister, first doctor in the family. I come from a family of doctors, so I can certainly understand that. Why does education mean so much to you and your family?
Yeah, absolutely. I come from a family where a lot of us are in the South. However, I think like I said, my parents met in Boston. My mom was actually engaged to someone else when she met my dad. She was working at a men's prison when, just to explain my mom is the most wonderful person I've ever met, and I have never been more terrified of anybody ever. Like she's my best friend, but I'm so scared of her in the best way. Uh, she she met my dad, and one of the things, and it was funny, like he said to her when they met, he was like, "I can't wait to take my kids here one day." And when I was 11, we went to Boston and we were looking around the campus at Harvard, and he's like, "I want you to know that this is an opportunity I will help you attain. If
Mm,
this is what you want to go for, absolutely, I'll help you get there." And for me, one of the reasons that, to answer your question, that education is so incredibly important to me is because that's something that no one can ever take away from you,
mm,
regardless of where you are, where you're at, where you're going. Like, no one can ever take away the opportunity that education provides. And that's one of the reasons that I'm really passionate about our program, is because when we provide an education and a learning opportunity for young women, it's opening doors for them that
yeah.
may not have been possible for. And speaking as someone that has been in all parts of Tennessee, and this has been on my heart with the hurricane that came through
Mm,
and affected East Tennessee, with the way I have seen our incredible education program thrive, where I've seen some needs. But one of the things that I think that I see the most is education provides opportunities that wouldn't have been possible for generations
mm,
past.
yeah.
Education can take you anywhere you want to go. It's just dependent on how can we provide future generations with this opportunity.
I think also it's not just generations past. I think if you give a young woman an
Yes,
educational opportunity, that's going to affect generations to come as well. It's something that can be so impactful. And if you take it out,
exactly.
two or three generations, it can have an absolutely huge difference. I need to back up for a sec, back to your mum. What did you okay. Exactly did you say your mum was? And I'm assuming that your dad didn't meet your mum because he was in prison. So just to clarify, just
Yeah,
back up for
no,
a
they did
sec.
not meet because he was in prison, and
Okay.
he had just gone through a breakup and was in Boston, and she was doing my mom was also a special needs educator, and so she was, I think her car had broken down and someone was helping her fix it in her family in the area, but she was, one of her things was, with her education background, is she wanted to be able to provide a hands-on experience for her students, and which was a huge asset for myself and my sister when we were homeschooled up until she was homeschooled till
Right.
6th grade. I was homeschooled till 7th grade, which was an amazing opportunity because it was such a hands-on learning, where even years and years later, we were able to go to Boston and see the Liberty Bell and Paul Revere's house. So that's where they met, was Paul Revere's house. And my mom had rented him, and he was like, she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. And I was determined to go out with her. And he like chased her down like on a bus. Like he saw her walking later, and he's like, "It's meant to be." And she said no, because she said my fiance said no. And he said, "I knew I could trust her." And I got her number, and I called her a year later, and then we got married a year and a half later. Like 35 years later, it's worked out. So it was happenstance. And very long story short, it worked out well. They have two kids that I hope they're very proud of, but they, one would hope, but it was just so funny, like watching it all happen. And like, then my dad used to call her when he was helping renovate the University of Mississippi football field and stadium. So it's funny being there years later and being like, my dad would call her on this payphone. So small world. But so she is originally from Phoenix and somehow has a Southern accent. But now she's in Memphis with my dad. And 35 plus years later, or 36. Yeah, 36 now.
Wow. Okay. And you said your mom's your best friend, but that you're also somewhat terrified
I'm
of her.
so scared.
So it's funny because I interviewed Haley, Haley Hurst, who's Miss
Yeah.
Virginia volunteer, and obviously Berkeley. And Haley's dad is a former Navy SEAL. Berkeley's dad was, I think, in the Air Force, right? And now here you are, you got a mum who used to work in prison. So what I'm curious, what was it like growing up? Because I mean, both of those girls, they were probably, the father was a discipline. Was it the opposite way for you, or
Yes and
both
no.
parents? Yes and no.
So
Okay.
my mom is the CEO of our demolition landfill business, but it's been in my dad's family for 3 generations. So, but my dad was like, "I'm not punishing the girls. You handle that." But it was also just very much like she, like I said, she's my best friend. So I'm scared of her because I know the woman is 5'3", I'm 5'9". She can pin me up against a wall if she tries. Like, I think Travis Kelce would be scared of her. She's the youngest of 4. Her brother is in Palm Springs, who actually was able to judge and select Berkeley, or her brother-in-law, Uncle Tony. But so it's always funny because like Uncle Tony is very petite and kind of her frame, and then Uncle Rocky is like this over 6'5" man that is one of her older brothers. And like this woman was the youngest of 4, like, but she could like pin my dad against the fridge. And when you meet Uncle Rocky, you're like, oh, same personality. But they're both so wonderful, and like, and I'm excited that they're now a part of Miss California Volunteer. That said, all that to say, they are all very intense. I joke that I'm terrified of her. I am, but she is my best friend. She's the first person I call for anything, but she also physically has amazing strength. She is, I won't say her age, but she is over her 60s. But so for her 60th birthday, she went for a 20-mile hike. I'm so
Just
scared of this woman.
casually.
Like, I mean, I'm not even 29 yet. I don't go for a 20-mile hike. Like, no, thank you. I don't want to go outside for the most part. But like I loved that. It's even with training, even now when I'm like, hey, what workouts are we doing? It like I have an incredible personal trainer, but when I'm like, what are we doing? Like the fact that she's still like flipping tires is huge. And like the role model she's been for me, not only just as a woman, but in her lifestyle and wellness, and even as a business owner. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, she is the most amazing woman I know.
I was just thinking, I mean, one of the reasons you probably couldn't go on a hike with her, I don't see any hiking shoes behind you.
No,
I'm not
so to
sure
be
any of these shoes would survive a 20-mile hike, much less flipping tires around. But it's funny because I also, similarly to yourself, am terrified of my mother. And she's
the
not
way it's
as
supposed to
short
be.
as your mum, but I'm 6'1". I'm quite tall. But I remember distinctly a childhood memory. I think it was 12 or 13, and I'd done something, it's Asian, it was school related. I had not performed as well as I should have. I would distinctly remember literally physically running away from my mum, and I had to be protected by my grandmother. And, and it's funny when I look back at it now, but
It was
I will
not
tell
funny
you,
then.
no, the fear is very real. You are running for your life because you know you did something wrong. So it's funny
I
that we
can
have that in
relate.
common. But I have a lot of respect for women who, because you say women can have it all, and yes, you can be feminine and you can be an amazing wife, but then to have that flip side, I think that just makes it even more amazing. Because similarly, probably to yourself, my mum's a very strong person emotionally, not just talking about it physically, but emotionally. And having that emotional backbone in the family, it's an amazing thing. But I want to go back a little bit and talk more about Tennessee. I realized looking through my American interviews that a lot of my favorite people had come from Tennessee, and
Great
I
selection.
hadn't planned it that way. I've been looking at people's social media and going, this girl, she looks amazing. She's doing amazing stuff. I'm going to interview her, and then I'm going to interview her. Then I'm going to interview her, and then I'm like, hang on, Tennessee, 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 Tennessee. And then Presley Pedigo told me Tennessee is, volunteer state.
They
And
are.
when I heard that, I was like, that's cool. And then given what you just told me about the education and the 2 years and all of that, and then I saw one of my friends who actually comes from the South that apparently, now coming from an Australian, right? I don't know anything about the stereotypes, north, south, east, west, but she was making fun. It was a skit. And she said, oh, Southern people aren't the most intelligent or whatever it was. And I'm curious as to what's the stereotype around Southern people, if there is one, because I've always loved getting to talk with people from the South because respect, manners, that more old school, just, what really matters to me, the kindness and the respect, yes, sir, yes, and they turn up on time and all this sort of stuff. But tell me more about the South and specifically Tennessee, because I'd love to hear.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there, of course, are stereotypes with any part of the United States. That said, um, we love manners around here. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Are integrated into you. I think my parents today would be embarrassed if I didn't. Like, I will still say it on business calls, and then I'll kind of couch myself, especially with clients that may be overseas or what have you. So that said, there's always a learning curve, and we always have more to learn. But with Tennessee specifically, I think one of the things that's so interesting about us is there's kind of three states in one. You have West Tennessee, Middle, and East. So obviously, my thoughts, prayers, and donations are with everyone in East Tennessee that is been experiencing the effects of Hurricane Helena. And what absolutely broke me was seeing counties that I remember visiting schools in and thinking, are my little babies okay, that I remember seeing in 2018, and like, how are you and your families, and just seeing the devastation. So thoughts, prayers into anybody watching. Also send your donations because that's what they need right now. That said, it is such a beautiful state because we have, being a Memphis native, West Tennessee is flat, but there's so much history. The blue, like, obviously we have Miss Volunteer America in Jackson, Tennessee, which is about an hour north of my hometown in Memphis. Elvis has a lot of history in Memphis. And do I have a custom made suit from my year as Miss Tennessee, which is like the Aloha suit somewhere in my closet behind us? Absolutely. And Allison, our CEO's mom, Precious Miss Jane, made, they're at my parents' house in Memphis, the most fantastic boots you've ever seen, because it was back when we still did the Show Me Your Shoes parade. They light up. There's glitter on the bottom. They're like outstanding. We were messaging Elvis, people that made Elvis like replicas, and then she made these shoes, and I was like, forget the outfit. This, like, but all of it was fantastic. And so that's a little bit about West Tennessee. There's the home of the blues. There's Elvis. There's so much more. And there's barbecue. We do have the best barbecue. I will absolutely argue with anybody. But then we have the Middle Tennessee. There's Nashville, but there's so much history and so much surrounding Nashville that I would definitely encourage people to take a look at. And so in Chattanooga, where I'm at, which is kind of the middle between, I would say the middle. It's like the middle-ish East Tennessee, where I'm like 2 hours east of Nashville. I'm an hour and a half north of Atlanta, 2 hours west of Knoxville. So then you get to Knoxville. We'll go over there in a second. That's UT Knoxville, all the things. Here in Chattanooga, we are the best kept secret in Tennessee. No one come here. I do not want my rent hiked. Don't. But I'm so close to, I'm 2 hours from Nashville. I'm two-ish with traffic, hours from Atlanta. I'm 2 hours from Knoxville. There's so much for me. And it's the biggest small town you'll ever come to, but with everything you would want in a major city. So many good things to say about it, but I don't want to share too much because I don't want everybody moving here. But then you go to Knoxville, and then you go into East Tennessee. Knoxville is obviously where UT Knox is. You go past that, there's so many beautiful mountains and scenery. There's just so much to Tennessee, especially with small businesses. We have so much. Even in Memphis is the headquarters for FedEx. And then you think about, there's a lot of right. I mean, no, most people don't know that. I mean, who would? There's so much that's here that is benefiting not just global, but businesses within the United States. There's just so much that we're able to provide. I mean, you think about, to make a comparison, you think about Arkansas Walmart, or that's what I think about. That's where the headquarters are at. But not a lot of people know just how many businesses we benefit. Memphis actually has the largest United States freight airport. So, but that's because of FedEx. And you think about just what we do and what we're able to provide and how that all relates to Tennessee. Even just thinking through, there was an announcement about being able to volunteer with everything that's been going on in East Tennessee. Like, please let us give you opportunities, because people were at the ready. Like, how can we help? And to me, that is every bit of what the volunteer state is.
probably the reason that I've been so attracted to Tennessee is probably
Exactly.
that kind of spirit without even knowing it. It's just I think it shines through in a lot of the people who've lived there who are Tennessean natives, and it's like there's something different about you guys. I need to back up to the barbecue because last time I traveled to the States like a year, maybe 2 years ago, I stayed in Texas. The pageant was in Texas. And so you know how they feel about barbecue. You've
Very
made
strongly.
somewhat inflammatory remark about Tennessean barbecue. So would you like to just weigh in here? Because I'm fascinated because people get passionate about weird things. Like in the UK, they get passionate about stuff. In Australia, we do. You guys, I think barbecue is a thing apart from football and all this other stuff that you get really passionate about. So how does Tennessean barbecue stack up against its Texan counterpart?
Way better. I'm not gonna say. I mean, I will tell you that the royal family has visited our barbecue chains. I I think you have to do like the sauce barbecue. You can't do the dry rub. If you do the dry rub, you know, you can experience it once or twice. You just need to come to the light side of the fence where it's just better. Everybody goes to, oh my gosh, I can't think of it. There's a place, but it's like you go in through an alleyway, and for some reason the name is escaping me, but it's fantastic. But there's so many great places. It has to do with like, do you want it spicy? Do you want a dry rub? Do we want a sauce? Like, what are we doing? But we do like so whenever I go somewhere and it says Memphis barbecue, I'm like, absolutely not. Like nowhere does it. My personal favorite is the commissary of Memphis, specifically in Germantown. 11 out of 10. They also have an incredible chocolate meringue pie. So good.
How do you stay in shape?
I don't go to Memphis as often. It's just you can't. I mean, we have great food in Chattanooga too, but it's just you time your visits with the card. My mom is also fantastic about. I will never forget at our old house. She'd said, "I was like, Mom, I just really don't feel like doing the second workout. I'm so tired." And she said, "Oh, I didn't know you didn't want to win."
That's
I
such a
went.
mum thing.
Oh, I was like, oh, the motivate, but she'll be the first one there. Like, if anything happens, she's the first one there to hug me, celebration, loss, or otherwise. But she's going to make sure that everything in her power is in place so that it's a happy hug. And she's always like, moderation. And I'm like, but I want the whole thing.
It's
But
funny,
she was
mum.
awesome.
I don't, mum seemed to have this knack for just saying one sentence that completely gets where you were feeling a little bit like, oh, maybe I wasn't working as hard as I could. Like, I think during COVID, we all put on weight, right? And my mum
Of course.
just came along one day and said, aren't you getting a little bit fat? Like, oh.
Like,
And after that, I'm out on
oh,
the streets running around looking at my diet. And it just takes, people look at these motivational videos and personal trainers. I just need your mum to come
just
around and deliver
one
that one
sentence.
line. And then you're like, it just gets you exactly in the field, doesn't it?
Like, I am so great. I don't need a single motivational quote. I just need my mom to remind me of where I'm at.
Yep. Yep. No, I think our mums probably have a lot in common.
They keep
You need
us
to tell
very
me
humble.
more. They do that too as well. Remind us of where we come from. Tell me more about the Miss Volunteer America system. I've been fascinated by it ever since I interviewed Haley. Haley put me onto Berkeley, and then on to you. I think you'll probably be my last interview for this year because I have to take a break at some point, and I
Of
have
course.
other work to do as well. But the Volunteer America system, I remember speaking to Haley, and I said, one of my problems that I've always had with pageantry, it seems to either go glamorous with no substance or a lot of
Mhm.
substance with no glamour. But then the problem is, a certain part of the appeal is that you want to see a show, right? That's
Of
part
course.
of the attraction, the appeal of entering pageantry is because of the show. And then I saw Miss Volunteer America, which I hadn't heard of before. And I said, hang on, it's got both. It's got both sides. So tell me more about the Volunteer America system. I know it's on the newish side of pageants. You were one of the first title holders, or actually the first national title holder, I believe.
Yeah.
But tell me more about the system, how it stands out, and obviously now you're a big part of it as well.
Yes, I mean, would love to give a little bit of context. I was Miss Tennessee 2018, and I was originally crowned when Allison and her mom and their family were over Miss Tennessee MAO, so Miss America Organization.
Yep.
So Forgive me if I continually use that because that's my normal. But it was so I had competed under them for 5, almost 6 years, and was so fortunate to win with them, and like was able to take home $50,000 in scholarships over the year. Amazing. But then that was also the year where Miss America 2.0 was announced. Now, one thing I want to make very clear is that I kept hearing about my choice. There was never a choice for me. There was for the state title holders, and my I know my all of my class would be very comfortable in saying this. There was no choice for state title holders, and Caramond, who is the previous Miss America 2017 going into our year, was outstanding at just giving us support and making us all feel
Mm,
heard. And that is something I could talk about for years. But something that was so interesting with I remember sitting in here in Chattanooga, my godparents are 5 minutes from me. I used to walk their dogs as one of my part-time jobs when we originally met, and then they found out they had a child they never knew about, which is me. So I used to walk their 5 beagles that are all like Boone's Farm, Baby Ruth, Nilla Wafer. They're all snack names, and they're the best extra family I could have asked for. But so, and my godmom used to compete in pageants in North Mississippi, and it was just I remember sitting in the living room with her and seeing the announcement of Bye Bye Swimsuit or Bye Bye Bikini, whatever it was, and I thought, "I'm gonna be told that I chose this." Which for me, like we talked about, like, I didn't know anything about a swimsuit, like, I come from a very Southern religious family, but for me, like, even my dad was the one that taught me into pageants, and because he
mm,
grew up in, like, the golden era. He'll be 70 next year, so he grew up when, like, Miss America was a celebrity and you knew her name, and I would love to see us get back to that one day, but that is a long TED Talk for another day. That said, I think one of the things that you mentioned, the glamour and the sparkles and the everything, like, to me, when we took that away, it was taking a part of what being a woman is away from the
mm,
organization because for me and like watching the Miss America organization when I grew up and like seeing Teresa Scanlon being crowned as the youngest Miss America ever, like the sparkle, the spotlight, the everything, because Miss America at that point was she can have it all. And that's what
yeah,
Miss Volunteer America is now because she like to me the greatest thing that any of us as women can do is to believe in each other and to share those learnings to empower the next generation or the next wave of women to help them achieve beyond what we could because it
mm,
it has to be a sisterhood through the wave through the generations through the classes because how else are we going to keep if we shatter a glass ceiling we have to make sure it stays open for the next wave of women that want to
yeah,
break through it and to me what hurt is I was raised by a woman that was a men's prison guard. I and
mm,
my I have a running joke that I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. My dad is a demolition and landfill engineer. My mother was a men's prison warden. Come at me, like, let's go. It's just I've been raised by the best of the best. So like, okay. But that said, it's just to me, one of the things that I've loved watching with my mom is yes, she does all that. Yes, now she's the CEO of the demolition business and she is shattering those ceilings, but she does it
mm,
in heels and they're very pretty ones, even though they may not be my size, but it's fine. So to me, it's just, and the other half of that is that my dad is enough of a man that he is able to be comfortable and confident with that as his partner.
mm,
And that's so important to me because I think as women, we have to be cognizant of men that are in our world or our partners, if that is your orientation, and
mm,
how those factor into our lives and who is going to make a difference, whether that's the women supporting us, the men supporting us, or the they thems that are supporting us, however that factors in. I think the people that are a part of your circle are just as important as who you are.
mm,
All of that said, I think there's nothing what upset me about everything with going into getting to Miss America. What an incredible privilege to get to go and represent Tennessee. But then getting there and the runway was taken away. There's no swimsuit, and I was told I didn't want that, and I don't recall being asked that. There's literally a carpet on stage, which I don't know if you tried to walk in heels on a carpet, but it's terrible. Um, that said, I for me, it's just there's a place for strong women to exist and to thrive, and there's also an ability for them to be feminine if that's what they choose. And I think
Yeah.
there's a way for us all to coexist and to have this beautiful ability to support each other. And that's to me that what made me make the choice that I did and to walk away from everything I knew and to support the Miss Volunteer Maker program because that's what I saw with Allison's vision was
Mm.
really seeing something where there's space for everybody because that's truly what empowerment is for me when there's space for everybody and we're giving them the resources, the space and the power to achieve anything they want to and the way they want to.
There's a lot that I'd want to dig into
There's
there. I
a
don't
lot
think
to
we have
unpack there.
time for it. Or even just going back to what you said about the men being threatened. I'm a life coach, and sometimes a lot of the times when I work a lot with women, and a lot of the time it comes down to the relationship they have. And if the old saying is, if you're not happy in your relationship, you're not happy. Full stop. And I would very often work. One of the things that really would bug me is when a man was weak, emotionally weak, when his woman was doing amazing things, and he would feel threatened by that rather than supporting it. I just say, dude, like, what are you doing? But I'll leave that for another day. I want to come back to the swimsuit thing because it was really interesting because I come from an outside perspective as a guy, first off, and from Australia. Pageantry is very tiny. And so you look at it and go from the outside, oh, Miss America's getting rid of the swimsuit section. Apparently for good reasons, right? And it kind of makes sense. But then I got into pageantry because I thought I had a stereotype and not a good stereotype. But I'll give myself credit was I need to actually challenge the stereotype and see if it's true. And then 8 years later, it's not because I'm still here. So I'll at least give myself credit for that. But we were being told by the MAO organization, oh, it's what the women want. This is the new pageantry. And then what happened was you'd see viewership numbers really decline. Now that's one thing. But also behind the scenes, I was speaking to women who were saying, I've been wanting to compete in this system for years. And then they suddenly said competing in a swimsuit is somehow bad. And so it feels like a slap in the face to me because I was doing it all these years, enjoying it. And now I'm being told I was helping to objectify women. And that was really interesting for me
Yeah.
because for me, it's not about what I think or even what the public thinks. If the women who are competing find it empowering, then surely that's what we should be supporting. And I'd just be interested to get because I remember I was reading your blog article, the one that 5 years later, I think it was the 5 years later one.
Mm.
I think you raised a really interesting point that the MAO organization at that time was saying it's what they want. And you guys got no choice. I think you got very little notice as well. I think things were being changed at prelims or something like that.
Mhm.
What was that whole experience like? Because it was ostensibly, yes, we're giving women a voice, we're giving them what they want. But behind the scenes, I was talking to women, it's like, no, I think this is a terrible idea.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, if you're not hearing our voice, then how do you know what we're saying? And
Well, exactly.
exactly what you're saying. But at the same time, to me, this was the first I remember walking on stage in a bikini for the first time. I had never been in a two-piece swimsuit before in my life, but it was my choice. It was a
Yeah.
discussion, it was a conversation, but it was my choice. And it was the first time where I was able to really hone in on my fitness and my nutrition and really understand the way that affected a performance ability, but down the line, a wellness ability. And like, how does that make me feel from the inside out? Not to boil it down, but what really bothered me was that if this is my body and this is my voice, then let me make it heard and let me make the decision. If it was a
Yeah.
vote, I would have respected majority or
Yeah.
minority or whatever happened. But it wasn't. It was something that I was told how I feel. And for me,
Yeah.
fitness has always been about this is my nutrition, my wellness, my lifestyle, my fitness, my activity. Like it's so many things wrapped into one. And yes, there's so many ways you can come about it. But for me, a woman is very much within control of her body and her voice. So let's make those heard at every step of the way, especially in a women's empowerment organization. And even
Mm.
with MBA, like we're what is swimsuit to you? Like it may be, and we call it lifestyle and wellness because it should reflect a woman's lifestyle because
Yeah.
the way her body looks affects everything else. To me, it affects her expression. It affects her soul. It affects the way she projects herself on stage. And so, however she wants to express that on stage is the way that I want her to reflect herself. But it's always going to be and it's if it's something where it's a little bit of an offshoot, let's have a conversation because she is the one that's showing up on stage and no one else.
Mm. Absolutely. I feel, I mean, obviously there've been a few not so, I mean, pageantry, particularly this year, has gone through a few, let's say, publicity bungles, especially with Miss USA and Miss Universe and the like. Um, I feel like one of the problems, I say this, I don't know if you agree with it, but I think the experience that a contestant has really is the director, right? If the director is an amazing person and they listen to you, doesn't matter if the system is a bit, let's say, below par, but you're going to have an amazing time. On the other hand, if the system looks great, but the director is not on board, then you're not going to have a good time. And the reason I say this is I want you to tell me more about the leadership team at MVA. From reading through your article and doing my bit of research, I understand that Miss Allison, I think you call her Miss Allison DeMarcus, she and her team have been doing this a long time for Tennessee.
Yes.
And I think that says a lot when you're doing it for one state, and obviously a state that you're very proud of, rightly so. And then when Miss America made these changes, that they said, okay, we're not on board with it, we're going to do our own thing, and they stayed true to their own vision. But I really think we need to give props, whenever a pageant's doing well, we need to give props to the director and her team in particular. So tell me more about the leadership team, and tell me more about your role, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with me and then I'll pivot to
Sure.
Allison's vision and how this all happened because we truly wouldn't be here without her. But so I serve as the national contestant liaison. So if you're ever interested, my email is Christine@MissVolunteerAmerica.net. I would love to. I talk to people. I joke that it's my pre-post and during 9 to 5, but I wouldn't be here if I didn't love it. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe in the team that's behind me. And I have just had like Allison and her mother and her family and her team are who I've competed with and who has
Mm,
been my direction all through. I mean, I even lived with her precious mother when I was preparing for Miss America because you have 6 weeks upon being crowned to departure from Miss America and
right.
cannot say enough good things about their family and just how much they mean to me. I mean, it's kind of a running joke that I'm like, oh, these are my two older sisters. Like they're incredible, and I just can't say enough about them. But I mean, I even think of her. I'm like her and her sister Amy. Like I'm like, oh, these are my little siblings. Like these are mine. And I've watched them grow up. Even just my laptop background is them in 2018. But it's just it's that experience and it's that trust. And I think that's so important in an organization. Of course, we're a new
Mm,
organization. We're learning things over time. That said, I always like getting on the phone and sharing my experience with young women so that way I can say like, here's what it is, here's what I can tell you, and I'll be right there at the podium helping to MC if you need a friendly face nearby. And if I'm not the one emceeing, I'll be in the wings. So if anything happens, like there's a friendly face there, and we want every woman that comes in our program, whether they're a teenager or a miss, to feel so comfortable. And like we just want every girl to walk away going, I want to do this every year. And
mm,
I want to come back every year. Now I would do want to emphasize that you could only come once, but we want it to be the thing that you work up to and that you come back to and that you support because like I said, I want everyone young woman to have an amazing experience. So with that said, I talk to lots of people all the time, whether it's moms, the girls, or their guardians, or what have you, just to explain what this program is, that it allows them to serve their community, that it gives them a role that's larger than what we could be as individuals to enable them to empower themselves, but also to be able to serve their communities and their service initiatives in a way that wouldn't be possible before. That's the goal, is to be able to create initial and larger service opportunities. So, all that said, to rewind, this was very much the brainchild of Allison DeMarcus, and she
mm.
is like the older sister I've always wanted for so many years, and she's incredible. It was so funny, like the first time coming to the pageant, I'm like, why do I look more like you than I do my mom? Like, where did you come from? And so it's kind of a running joke. People are like, oh, that's your sister. I'm like, sure. Like, I'm happy to be a part of the Alderson family. But she and Amy and her mother and their partners and their kids are all incredible. But it's really has been a service-based organization, and she has been a part of Tennessee for years. And so when everything happened, one of the biggest reasons that I am an advocate for this program and why I've stayed involved is this was always my choice. Even
Mm,
when before she was the CEO, when it was the huge break from MAO and their leadership, it was very much, Christine, what's best for you? What's going to work for you? How
yeah.
like I am so grateful and so privileged to be in a position where my family hired legal help and attorneys, and I like to this day, John Jacko, from the bottom of my heart, what would I do without you? But at the same time, like, what an incredible position I was in to have a choice where
Mm,
so many of my sister queens were not in that position,
yeah.
where people weren't taking up for them and they weren't given a choice. It was just figure it out. And Allison was the one that stood up and she said, "No, this isn't what you signed up for. This isn't what you wanted, and this is not what I signed you up for." And
Yeah.
just cannot say enough, but it was just, this is supposed to be about the young women, the scholarships, and their service initiatives, and y'all are changing that. And so for
Mm,
her to stand up and take up for me, like, that was a part of what I want my life's legacy to align with, and what I would feel proud of knowing that I leave behind. So knowing that she stood up, that she helped create this, and this is not just her hobby, this is her every day. I am
mm.
so sure that she is so tired of me blowing her up with the most random questions, but she is always so patient and kind to deal with me. And whether it's her or Scott Hilburn or so many other incredible volunteers within our national organization or our state organizations, it's about the young women. It's about not only helping them enable young women for the future and not only their futures and the women they benefit, but benefiting their communities. Like, how are we creating a future for more than just this woman? But how are we
Mm.
helping them benefit the communities around themselves? And that's truly what this all is about.
I think it's amazing whenever a director actually stands up for her title holder. And I don't know, that's more often the case than not, but sometimes I've seen the opposite, where a director will go along with the national direction against their title holder, and I think it's a betrayal. It rubs me the wrong way. I think if you're a director, you're there for the women. You're there for the contestants. They should be
Absolutely.
your number one priority above everything else. What's the vision for the Miss Volunteer America system as a newer system, which I think gives you a lot of opportunity? I know you got poor old Berkeley flying all over the country, going
I
through.
don't think she
every,
sleeps, and I
no,
couldn't be prouder, but I don't think she sleeps
well, she
or
said
has.
that she now has trained herself to sleep on the plane, and she's living off her
Mhm.
microwave protein bars and, and things like that. But I don't know how she's different city every day. Every day that girl, she joked she's been in back home at South Carolina for a week and a half, and that was pretty good. I'm like, back home for a
No, I
week and a half
get
is
it.
good for you. But what's the vision that we got here?
I eventually, the vision I see for Miss Volunteer America is to be a full-time job. Similarly to different title holders at a national level that we're used to seeing, we have a national partnership with St. Jude Children's Hospital, and as a Memphis native, where St. Jude is based out of, and her national headquarters are, that's a special place in my heart, and that's something that we're so fortunate to so many people working with us, and that is something I could talk about all day long because I think the story of Danny Thomas and everything he does for childhood cancer and the way he's helped eradicate that is just outstanding. Even one of my best friend, Grace Moist, we've been best friends since we were 12. Ironically, our dads were best friends before they met their wives. Um, is a nurse there, and I love seeing what she does and just the incredible work they do. But in addition to that, the Salvation Army, and so all of that to say, there is the foundation and the bedrock of all this is a basis of service. And to make sure that young women that are joining us understand that this is about so much more than just us. It's about serving. Yes, there are so many opportunities for you as a young woman, but let's start by learning leadership through service, because I think that's where true leadership is learned. And then I would say the second part is scholarship, benefiting these young women, creating lives for them and futures for them and their families in communities that they would have never seen. I mean, one thing I think about a lot is seeing communities where children, and I, again, so incredibly privileged to see opportunities beyond more than myself and my
Mhm.
city. And being able to share that with children as the Tennessee character education spokesperson, what Berkeley's doing in cities all across our nation to say, you don't have to stay here. Whatever you want to do, swing for the fences. This is what I'm
Mm.
doing as Miss Volunteer America. What can I enable you to do? That is what I think her goal should be as Miss Volunteer America, is what can I not only inspire young children to do, but how can I show them that
Mm.
it's possible? Um, there's so many things, but at the end of the day, one thing I think that is unique about us is that I want to not only emphasize the service and the academics and the opportunities, but the glamour, and that she can have it all and she can have it
Yeah.
all now. And that's what I really want Miss Volunteer America to embody, because I see it, like, I'm so encouraged by the women I see, because as the national contestant liaison, they talk to me all the time. I'm sure they're all so tired of me texting them, but it's not going to stop. And to see so many of them coming back is really encouraging because they know what has become possible for them through this program, but also what they're able to do by continuing to make these opportunities possible for continued generations and additional young women. It's just really inspiring to see. And I hope they're not tired of me calling them every 5 minutes because it's never going to stop. And they have all been so patient, and I couldn't be prouder of all of our classes.
So what do you do with the 5 minutes of free time that you have in your month? Do you have a job outside? I mean, what do you
You
do?
I am an executive strategist and account manager for Ubiquitous. I work in influencer management, and so I work with our clients to build out proposals to understand their needs and build out full-scale digital and social media campaigns, which does give me a unique perspective into this to say, "Hey, girls, like here's the kind of clients that I'm working for, and here's the kind of creators they're working for." And that's another part of this is that I, as Miss Tennessee and Miss Tennessee volunteer, was able to help share like, "Hey, here's how I built my following. Here's something like even now as
Mm,
just Christine, I'm still able to do some brand deals and that's really fun, even if it's just a gifted opportunity. But to share like how can I enable you to attain additional opportunities in the future? And this is
mm.
part of it is digital opportunities and digital marketing. Outside of that, it's mostly I think they're asleep on my couch, are my two senior cats, or looking at for more shoes, or probably talking to our fabulous national title holders. I mean, I
Well,
was talking to Berkeley this morning, and she was telling me how much fun she had. And I was like, okay, great, great, great. I'm gonna listen to this for the rest of the day. I was like, I listened to a rundown, but so it's that with probably my little one-eyed 14-year-old cat chasing me somewhere, or my 12-year-old very overweight cat chasing me, or both.
I am a cat person, so I was actually going to ask you about cats. It's funny that you bring it up. But just before we get to that, what does a typical? I asked Berkeley this, and I'm scared. I was scared to ask her. I'm going to ask you the same thing, and I'm also scared. How do you organize your time?
Oh, I have the type A person planner. It's called the daily, but but that said, there's a whiteboard over here and one over here, and there's files behind them, and then there's a dry erase board calendar
Whiteboard
behind
right
both.
there,
You
and
get
one
it.
over there as well. Two whiteboards.
There has to be. So the clear one's here, the regular one's behind it, but there has to be a list, there has to be a way to write it down. And I am a Google Calendar queen to a fault, but I have to have my regular to-dos have to live on a piece of paper or it doesn't exist in my head. So that, and then I have to have a separate work laptop. Is that feasible? Meh. But but having the personal slash pageant one and then the work one does help tremendously. That way I have my iCloud
Right.
separated. No, I don't have to worry about like, did I send that to the right thing? And even just separating my Miss Volunteer America email from my personal email,
Mm. Hmm.
outstanding. Because that way I know like, okay, this has to go here, this has to go here. So it's a system and there's lots of checks and balances, but we figured it out, but Google Calendar is the be all end all.
I think we need to get you a virtual assistant. Sounds like one of those could come in
You have
handy.
no idea. More than
I could
likely.
probably, I could probably find you one. Let me ask about cats. I mean, you described one as being very overweight. I think you said, and one has one eye. I love cats, but I've got my cat, and he was actually going to be discarded, and I took him on, and he's the sweetest natured cat you'd ever meet. And just this week, I only tell this to cat people because cat people get it. There's been a cat that keeps coming to our house every day, and he would come up to our front door in front of my cat, and he would start rolling around on it and showing his belly. And they're very friendly; they keep talking to one another. And I made it my mission last week to befriend this cat, and it works so well to the point that he comes to our place every day now. And I found his name is Blueberry, and he's this
Oh,
Russian blue. He's the most impressive looking cat. And they give him a name of Blueberry, which is just it's a terrible name for like an
I don't
impressive
think it's
cat.
terrible.
Uh, I think you got to
But
call it like
I think you
Tiger or
have another
something.
cat. I think you just have another cat is what it is, especially if they're showing their belly. Like, so mine are Diesel and Winky, and but Diesel thinks he's a panther, and Winky just runs my life. But I sounds like you have another cat.
What is it that you love most about cats? Because for most of my interviews, it's always been dogs, and I don't mind dogs.
I do like dogs.
I don't, because you have to go for a walk and stuff like that and clean up after them. I'd rather you clean up after yourself. But what is it about cats you love? Because I was stalking you on Instagram and I see cats quite often, so I was like, I need to ask Christine about this.
Just a few. I mean, because so on the flip side, my boyfriend has a Russian bear dog, which is she's 130 pounds. That's a lot of dog. Where
Yeah.
Diesel's, I keep looking because and I say his name usually he jumps over here to his bed.
Mhm.
So he's a solid 20-ish pounds. But he was my first cat, and my local director, who is still, I joke like my other dad, Rodney was like, "You need a cat." It's like I don't need a cat because I've rescued 20 something dogs on my parents' demolition sites and landfills, and I
Right.
love my dogs. Like Joey didn't, his eyes weren't open. Like I bottle fed him like he's my baby, but I have my automatic cleaning litter boxes, life changing, but just they're so sweet. Like they're such little babies, and they have no idea. Diesel has no idea how big he is. Winky has no idea how small she is. Like she will sit. I'm in downtown Chattanooga, and she'll sit on my patio and like growl at the bus stops. I'm like, wow. But then Diesel is scared of that. But then if he hears a DoorDash drop off after 8 p.m., he goes running and growling at the door. So they're so sweet and they're so small, even if they're not, even though Diesel steps on me and I'm like, I can't breathe. Like he was laying like here last night when I was watching a movie and I'm like, I can't. But they're so sweet. They're so loving. Like I joke to my mom all the time, like I wish the dogs could purr because then I would know
Yeah.
if they're
Yeah.
how they feel. But I would keep them all if I could. And I'm sure if my boyfriend's watching, he's terrified because I want 70 and I want them all. And I should stop volunteering at my shelter because I will take all of them home.
You will literally become the crazy cat lady that we
And I'm
hear.
okay with
So
that. I just want the what's it called? The catio. So that way they can go outside but stay inside. I don't have to worry about them.
I need to ask the self cleaning litter trays. They work?
11 out of 10. I've even done a campaign for Litter Robot. Amazing. I use the pet safe ones, but they have enclosures, so that way I don't have to deal with it all. Between that and the little robot vacuum, life
I need to
changing.
get this. I need to
It's
get this.
Costco. Well, I'm not sure if they have Costco's in Australia, but
No,
Costco has been our friend because
right.
then you can
Okay.
get. I think that was last year's Christmas present for my mom. She's like, "Here's your robot vacuum." I'm like, "Oh my god, this is my 20s. Amazing."
I need to get one of those. I mean, do they ever chew your shoes or vomit in your shoes? Because that's the joke with cats. It's like they'll
Not the
have a go at your
shoes.
shoes. Not the no.
Just the carpet. I do a lot of cleaning and a lot of shampooing. I'm the queen of cleaning around here. Thankfully, like we're easily a half inch off the ground, so that hasn't been an issue so far. But I don't want them to hear me say that, or else that might change.
Yeah, no, I got that. Yeah, you don't want them chewing on a several $1,000
No.
shoe.
One
Um,
day there will be that opportunity, and they will find it.
yeah, and then I don't think you'll be very happy. Just before we move to the close, Christine, because we're just keeping an eye on the time, is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to for supporting you along your journey?
Oh my goodness. So, I mean, Allison and Jane and Amy have all been amazing, and Rodney is one of the most amazing people in my life, and I'm sure he is. I joke that he's my second dad, my hairdresser, but so much more. I, I don't know what I would do without any of them, and even just Scott, who's on our national board, is amazing, and my parents have been incredible. And I always joke that my sister was my business manager during my year. But that said, Rachel Null was amazing. She was Miss Scenic when my local director had Miss Chattanooga, Miss Scenic City, and I think it was Miss Tennessee Valley. She was a former Miss Scenic City, and she was so gracious. And when everything hit the fan, she became my business manager, and I truly don't know what I'd do without her because from helping me publish my children's book to we went through because there was a situation where our former local or not local state business manager had a lot of family issues and health issues. And so we're like, absolutely go deal with that. We had to redo and go through our files and figure out how to configure every contact for every school district in Tennessee. And I would wake up around like 4:30 Eastern in the morning and then like start doing my thing around 5:30 so I could leave by like 7, pack up my hotel room and get out to the next school. And
Wow.
she would wake up with me at that time and make sure that so we could have 3 to 5 of the next schools nailed down. Just not enough words to say thank you, but there's so I don't even know how to think of how many people because there's been so many. I mean, even my godparents, like when you're on the road a whole year, like what do you do? Like they were letting me like crash at their house, and my godmother owns a collection of boutiques and dressed me, and then my godfather's a lung cancer surgeon and would get me on the news with him. Like, and we did that. You, in case anybody in the Chattanooga or Atlanta or really anywhere, he's one of the best surgeons in the nation. And his initiative is about lung cancer screening to make sure that we are able to provide preventative efforts. We're able to wake up in Tennessee. We have the largest aquarium in Chattanooga, and did a otter get screened for lung cancer, and we're able to wake up the otters. We had to be here at like 6 a.m, like full hair makeup on the news, and we're able to wake up the otters on November 1st. It was amazing. But so just not enough words to say thank you to so many people. So lots of people. I'm sure that I could come up with a list of many, many more.
How does one wake up an otter?
So it's like kind of pyramid looking. So it's all natural light. And then, so you have to wait till the sun comes up. But mostly we just tapped the pumpkin that was in their enclosure. And then they were chasing the pumpkin. There's a really cute photo of the otters chasing the pumpkin over my crown, or looks like it, because we're outside the enclosure, obviously. But there is a really cute photo my godfather took of that, and it was one of the best days of my year and life, if we're being honest.
I mean, it's coming up to, speaking of pumpkins, it's coming up to spooky season. Have you got any Halloween plans?
Yeah. We have a wedding this weekend for a friend, so excited to see some old college friends. But outside of that, Halloween's on I'm looking at my calendar behind my thing. Isn't it on a Thursday? I will be asleep. Oh, we do have, so Hokulani, the Russian bear dog, the giant Russian bear dog, who's the runt of the litter at 130 pounds, is going to be a baby bee. So she's going to have wings, and I think we'll be bee keepers. It'll be cute. And Winky, I'll have to post pictures. She has a pageant costume. I've made her a crown patch. It looks like a tiny volunteer crown. It is the cutest thing ever.
I've seen dogs dressed up, and they seem to wear it pretty well. My brother has a very obese ragdoll cat, and he bought it this bumblebee costume, which is too tight for him. And he put the bumblebee costume on, and the cat, when you put the clothes on, it just falls over and lies there. And he's got these wings and these antennae, and it just, it looks so
We might have to do it
bad.
side by side with her and with the cat and Hokulani, because she's got very small wings planned for her costume.
Oh dear. Anyway, Christine, let's go through these final 10. So, number 1, what is your favorite word?
Oh, that's a hard one. I would say, I don't want to say empowerment because I feel like that's redundant. So I would say amplification.
What is your least favorite word?
No.
After having done so many hundreds of interviews, I can tell you that every single contestant who's ever answered no answers it with exactly the same facial expression and inflection in their voice. And you can just see, they don't take no for an answer. Like, no. Like, why not yes? So like, I know where that comes from. Number 3, in life, what gets you excited, or what turns you on?
I would say opportunities and I just think I'm starting to visualize, like, I think opportunities and technology.
That's interesting, because most pageant girls I've interviewed are really technologically very backwards and inept. They often have difficulty even jumping on the interview. You're one of the very few.
We're learning.
Fair enough. So that's what turns you on. What about what turns you off?
I would say anybody that lack of communication and lack of open-mindedness.
What sound do you love?
I love hearing my friends laugh.
What sound do you hate?
Chewing. I can't.
Okay. That's another one I've heard relatively often. Number 7, if you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
Time travel, because there's a lot of people I would want to talk to.
In the past or in the future?
Both. I would want to fix many a thing on my laptop,
Fair
but also
enough.
lots of advice from past figures.
Number 8, what job would you most like to attempt?
World Supreme Dictator. Just all of it. Which may not be feasible, but I will take Secretary of State as a solid runner-up.
World Supreme Dictator. You sound like you've given that some thought. Like that's the actual title that you
I
want.
have a whole plan. Ultimate
Okay.
Grand Supreme Dictator, if you will.
What job would you definitely not like to attempt?
The person that has to do my logistics. If I
Virtual
was World
assistant.
Supreme Dictator. Exactly. We just need a little bit of AI.
That's what we
A
need.
virtual assistant and some AI.
Final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
That all my pets and loved ones are there.
Perfect. Well, Christine, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking non-existent free time out of your day to
Oh, it's my
talk with
pleasure.
us. And best of luck with everything coming up. I'll keep you on the line for just a sec whilst I hang up with the audience. Thanks everyone for watching, and we will speak to you next time. Bye for now.